Good day guys, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are going to dive deep into the Samsung T5 and the Samsung T7 SSD. On the paper, the T7 is twice as fast as the T5. You know, I'm gonna prove the paper wrong. So in today's video, we are going to test exports, imports, and we're gonna dive deep into both of these to find out which one should you get if you're gonna edit videos in LumaFusion. Now keep that in mind, edit video in LumaFusion. This test is meant for those of you which is editing videos and are looking for a hard drive and everything is going through the iPad. If you want a short answer, if you edit on a computer, then go for the T7. If you edit on an iPad, go for the T... Let's find out. So here we have the Samsung T7 SSD disk. Inside the box, you will get the T7 disk itself, the SSD, in this case with 1 terabyte of storage. You will also get 2 different cables, one which is USB-A to USB-C and another one which is USB-C to USB-C. So you should be able to connect to any of your devices, whether it's your Mac, PC or your iPad. Now in this video, we're gonna take a deep dive into the Samsung T7 versus the Samsung T5 to once and for all find out which one is the best for you and which one is the one I recommend and which is the one that you should actually go for when it comes to price, size and speed, because I think you'll be surprised after you watch this video. So stick around to find out the differences between these two SSD disks and let's put them to the test and find out if there's actually that much difference between them. Now the first thing we're going to do is to connect the Samsung T7 directly to the iPad without going through a hub. Now if you go through something like a multi-ported hub, the one I have is Satechi, it's 4K, 3 USB-A ports and USB-C port and so on, you're going to lose some of that speed. So it's always best to connect it directly into your iPad. And this is the M1 iPad with 1 terabyte of storage, 16 gigabytes of RAM. It has the Thunderbolt 3 port, so this should be lightning fast, right? Now let's take a look at that. The first test we're gonna do is to take footage from the T7 drive and we're gonna just select all of the footage that I have here, which is about 5-6 gigabytes, and then we're gonna select all of it and drag it over to our timeline to see how long it takes before we release the clips to the timeline until we're able to actually edit and scrub on the timeline. So dropping this on the timeline, we're gonna start the count and you can see it takes around 2 seconds, which is, you know, no one gonna notice this anyway, and it's just gonna be something that you will have in your workflow. So you just, I just wanted to see how fast and compare this with the T5 later on. So that was quite fast, right? It was 2 seconds, and which is, you know, yeah, like I said, we're not gonna bother with this anymore. And anyway, I'm gonna trim this down so we have a clip or a sequence which is 10 minutes long, and then we're gonna render this, and we're also gonna do one which is 5 minutes and 3 minutes and 1 minute to see if there's any difference between the two devices doing renders with the exact same clips. I'm also going to apply some effects here. We're going to have some basic LUT and color correction, and we're also going to add some sharpening to it, and we're going to copy these over to the other clips as well. So now we have all the clips with the same effects. Now the next thing is we're gonna go over and select the quality to 75 megabits per second. It's gonna be 4K, and this is what we're gonna use throughout the test for all the different renders and exports with the 2 SSD disks. Now we're gonna export this directly over to the T7, so I'm gonna go over and just change the name of it, and we're gonna start the test here. Now this is a 10-minute long clip, so it will take some time. Doesn't matter what type of drive you have, it will still take some time because it's a massive project. Now if we take a look here, it comes in around 5 minutes 30 seconds-ish, which is quite good. In 5 minutes 30 seconds for a 10-minute export is decent. Now, if we go over to the T7 here, I'm just gonna see if everything got exported. You know, in some cases, you want to check this before you leave the project, just in case, because personally I experienced this before, that everything had rendered and then I went out and apparently nothing got exported to the SSD disk. So this is also a smart thing to check as well if you are exporting directly to an SSD disk. So 5 minutes 30 on the 10-minute. Let's move over and trim this down to 5 minutes and then do the exact same settings here and then do the export. So taking a look at the time here, we can see a 5-minute export with the same type of clips, with the same effects like earlier. It's just shortened down. It comes in at 2 minutes and 15 or 16 seconds, which is fairly decent. It's fast. 5 minutes of video you can export in 2 minutes and 15 seconds, which is quite good. Now, after checking the footage to see if it got imported, we're gonna move over and delete some of the clips again, so we have this down to 3 minutes. And let's do our render again here, same settings to everything, and let's go. So on the previous one, we had 2 minutes and 15 seconds on the 5-minute clip. On the 3-minute clip, we had 1 minute and 22 seconds. So that's also a very good number, a fast export, and I'm sure that this is around average. I mean, if you export directly to your device, it's probably gonna go a little bit faster, but anyway, I think we have one more test, 1 minute of the T7 here before we move over to the T5. So doing the exact same thing, just deleting some of the clips, and we're gonna export this 1 minute clip here over to the T7. So the 1 minute clip came in around 28 seconds, which is also a very good number. Now let's move over to the T5 here, and we're gonna do the exact same test. We're gonna select all the clips here, then we're gonna drag it to the timeline to see how fast it goes from we release until we can scrub and play around on the timeline here. Starting the timer there, we are coming in around 2.12 seconds here, so that's, you know, it's the same. It's sort of the same as the T7. So we're just gonna leave it as that. And we're gonna do the same thing with this, apply the color correction, the LUTs, and the sharpening here, and we're gonna copy all of these over to the remaining clips as well. So now that we've done that, we're gonna move over and export this 10-minute sequence once again, but this time to the T5. So remember the number from the T7, it came in at 5 minutes and 30 seconds. So for the T5, it actually takes a little bit longer. So 5 minutes and 30 seconds, and on the T5, 6 minutes and 8 seconds. So this is about 38 seconds longer, which is, you know, like it should be because the T7 is faster. Now, if we do the exact same thing again, we trim this down to 5 minutes and start the timer, we can see that the T5 is exporting in 2 minutes and 16 seconds. Now the T7 was actually exporting this in 2 minutes and 15 seconds, so now there's only 1 second difference, or not even that, because the T7 was 2 minutes and 15.78 seconds, whilst the T5 is 2 minutes and 16.17 seconds, so it's about the same as the T7, right? And now we might get a little bit interesting here. So if we do the same thing and shrink it down to 3 minutes, we can see that we have a time of 1 minute and 22.36 seconds. So 1 minute 22, and on the T7 we also have 1 minute 22. Now let's move over to the final export here, which is the 1 minute clip here. Exporting the 1 minute clip to the T5 took 28.31 seconds, whilst exporting the same sequence to the T7 took 28.17, so about the same. I had to test something else as well because, you know, this is not the only thing that we want to use an SSD disk for. We want to use it and apply it to our workflow. And that means that you will, you know, probably get a dongle and you will connect your devices like micro SD cards, normal SD cards, or your cameras directly to the dongle, which is connected to the iPad, and then you want to have the SSD disk connected to the dongle as well. So you can transfer files directly from your SD cards or your cameras over to your SSD without taking up any space on the iPad, and then still have a smooth workflow once we get into LumaFusion. So here I connected my Satechi dongle and my Sony a7S3 and my Samsung T5. So what we're gonna do is to export footage from the camera over to the SSD disk, and we're gonna see which one is doing that faster. Is it the T5 or is it the T7? Now let's start a timer here, and for the 7.72 gigabyte file, we can see the Samsung T5 is only taking 1 minute and 22 seconds. Now if we do the exact same thing with the T7, we can see that the T7 is actually using 3 minutes and 8 seconds. So that's twice as long as the T5. So the T5, 1 minute 22 seconds, and the T7, 3 minutes and 8 seconds. So that's yeah, what? I don't even understand it. And at this point, you know, I'm starting to think maybe there is some issues with the T7. So we're gonna go over and do this one more time here. So we're gonna take footage from the micro SD card from the GoPro, and we're gonna take the 7 files which is on top here, and we're gonna drag those over to the SSD disk, release, start the timer, and for these files, these 7 files, which is approximately 5 gigabytes, it took the T5 1 minute 39 seconds to export. Now if we do the exact same thing with the T7, then we can see that it's actually taking 3 minutes and 11 seconds to import the exact same clips. So again, the T5 is so much faster than the T7, twice as fast, but on paper the T7 should actually be twice as fast than the T5. So that's not the case in this test. So I actually drove out to pick up another Samsung T7, the same one, 1 terabyte, and after unboxing that and plugging it in directly to the iPad, I went over, I did the exact same test and the exact same edit here, applying the footage, then color correction, some sharpening, and then just trimmed it down and made an export. Now for this test I only did a 10-minute export because it's going to be a little bit faster anyway. So for the 10-minute export to the Samsung T7, the second Samsung T7, we can see that this is 5 minutes and 30 seconds, and for the first T7 that I tested, we had 5 minutes and 29.20 seconds, so about the same. Now I wasn't really satisfied with the speed of the T7, so I wanted to do another test. So this is the same as earlier, this is with the 7 GoPro clips. So exporting that or importing that over to the T7 from the micro SD card took now 3 minutes and 27 seconds. So this was actually 13 seconds slower than the first T7 SSD. Now I wanted to do another test with the T5 to see if it could actually, you know, import the files again at the same speed as earlier. Now letting go here and importing the files over to the SSD disk directly from the micro SD card, the same clips, the same 7 clips took 1 minute and 12 seconds. So this concludes that the T5 is actually twice as fast as the T7 when it comes to importing footage. When it comes to exporting, the T7 is slightly faster if you have a long project. Both of the file formats are exFAT, and this is what you will get with the T5 and the T7 by default. So there was nothing done, no formatting done to the SSD disks, and nor did I do this with the T5 back in the days when I got that as well. So both of the SSD T5 and T7 is going to be exFAT by default, meaning you can connect this to your PC, your Mac, your iPad, and perhaps your Android phone, or anything that you want to plug it into. You can do that because it's exFAT by default. Now, after doing this test, I was quite curious to see how the speed actually was, because there's no way you can test the speed on the iPad properly. So I plugged all my SSD disks into the MacBook Pro, and I plugged them in one by one just to be sure. So the first one here is the T7, the first T7 that I got. And if we take a look at the speed here, everything is connected in the same port, and we can see that the speed is 419 with the write and 418 with read, which is quite fishy if you ask me. So I went over and I did the Samsung T5, and we can see that the T5 was actually faster on the write and faster on the read. Now, after I got the second T7, I wanted to test this as well, just to see if it was the first one, or if, you know, what they say is just, you know, it's not true at all. So I needed to do this test again, and I went over, plugged the last one, the newest one, and plugged that into the MacBook and did the same test. And here we can see that we have now closer to the 1050 megabytes per second here, and that goes for read and write as well. So that leaves me with the conclusion of the first one being slightly broken in some way, and the last one actually working properly. But that's no excuse for the differences in speed when it comes to editing and having a consistent, smooth and fast workflow in LumaFusion, or if you just want to import your video files from your camera, from your SSD disk over to your external drive. The test clearly shows that the T5 is faster when it comes to importing footage and video, and the T7 is slightly faster when it comes to exporting. So I'm not sure what to think actually, because the T5 it's old, it's really old. I had it for years, and it's clearly faster than the T7 in many ways. But if you're gonna have like huge projects where you have tons of effects, then maybe the T7 is the one for you. But for me, I think I'm just gonna return this and get a 2 terabyte of T5 instead, because that will definitely do me better than the T7. So there we have the final test results of the T5 and the T7, and at this point my conclusion: before iPadOS 15, the T5. This is something that I actually said, you know, 2 years. For 2 years now I said go for the T5 because it's lightning fast. Apparently it is, because you are slow. So the T5 is, you know, I'm gonna return this, not this one, but the first one, which is already packed for return. This is gonna be returned. I'm gonna keep this T7 1 terabyte until iPadOS 15 is out. That might improve the speed on this as well. So I'm just gonna hold on and see. You probably know more about iOS or iPadOS 15 than I do, because, you know, I don't have time to look into that. I just have to figure things out when I have it here in front of me. I have other things that I need to prioritize. So I really hope that you enjoyed this test review as well of the 2 SSD disks. There is a link to the T5 down in the description below. T7, you know what, I'm not gonna leave a link to that because I can't recommend it. So T5 is the only one that you will find down there, because that's the one that I recommend. And when it comes to you know, just a quick why. You know, this is a little bit slower on the export, not that much, but it's twice as fast when it comes to importing my footage to the SSD disk from my camera, and then, you know, I don't have to wait that long to edit my videos in LumaFusion, because this is twice as fast as this super slow fast SSD. Anyway, that's gonna be the end of today's video. Really hope that you enjoyed this test. Let me know down in the comment section below which of the SSD disks do you prefer and what are you using your SSD disk for. So that's gonna be the end of today's video. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, like for the algorithm, notification bell if you want to be, you know, the first one to check out the newest videos popping up on this channel. And with that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.